Hey everyone, in this video we're picking up right where we left off, and that we are going to finish up the board, and we are going to have QBert rotate based on which direction he's traveling, and we will also have the tiles change color when he hops on them. So let's start with finishing up the board. And so it's just more copy and paste. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this one and then travel down, copy this one, travel down. That way we're not kind of jumping back and forth like in the previous video. So it makes it very easy to calculate the next position. So these are the ones that are traveling along X. So we're going to go 1X, and then it needs to move down. And then we'll just keep going. And so this would be 2x, negative 3. So again, you're just moving it 1x and 1y. And just, again, rinse and repeat. So increasing x by 1, decreasing y by 1. And yes, as I mentioned in the previous video, this could be done with an instantiate command. Maybe at the end of the video, I'll show an alternate way. But again, it's really not necessary. If you were going to make lots and lots of boards, then yes, you would want to use instantiate. But it's just one board, and once you've done this copy and pasting, you never have to do it again. And just like that, we're almost done. And there we go. Just like that, we have a map. Our board, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so we can test this to make sure he can hop all around, but because we again use the same proportionate spacing, it shouldn't make any difference, but we'll test it just to be safe. So we've got A, D, A, D, E, W. So yeah, this is just fine. Hops all around. Okay, great. Okay, a brief splice there. I had to test something. So as I said, we're going to rotate QBert now. So if you look at the transform component in the inspector, you'll see that the current rotation is -90, 0, and 180 for X, Y, and Z. and that rotation works for the A key because we said the A key is what will bring it down to the left. So let's go over to our move Q script, and we'll just paste this in, and I'll read through it. So transform, so that's the component we were just looking at. Your angles equals new vector 3. Again, this just says that there are 3 different vectors that you're choosing, the X, the Y, and the Z. If this was 2D, it'd be vector 2. And we're using exactly the same settings that were there because, as we said, the A key will move in that direction and that he's already properly rotated for that direction. So now W is the exact opposite. It's moving up and to the right, therefore should do a 180, literally. So a 180-degree difference would be 0. Don't be like me and accidentally do negative 180 and fail at math, because obviously the difference between 180 and negative 180 is 360, which means it's the same thing. Negative 180 and 180 would be the same. And then you just build from there. So D is a 90-degree rotation from A, because that would be down to the right rather than down to the left. Again, we're working with perpendiculars here. And then E would be the opposite of that, and therefore would be negative 90. Now, it's possible I got these two flipped. If it is, it's just a matter of moving the negative, not a big deal. And we'll just run this. Typically, I like to test as soon as I add new functionality, but it's clearly rinse and repeat as far as the rotation, so why run it through 4 times? I'm not trying to pad out the length of the video. I like these to be nice and short and snappy. So A, and then D should move down to the right. Perfect. And now the 2 ups, W should move up to the right, and E is up to the left. Absolutely perfect. So just like that, with just a couple minutes, we now have the rotation in place. So you've got the basic functionality now of QBert in place. One thing that I didn't mention that the original game did have is there's also like a couple flying discs. We can add those later, but we'll do the same thing. It'll be like exactly 1 position over. That way we don't have to modify the control, and that will probably be one of the later videos that we do. Okay, so we finished the board, we added rotation. Now we are going to have the blocks change based on him landing on the block. So to make the tiles change color, what we're going to do is we're just going to create several different materials that have a different color, and then based on impact, what's going to happen is the tile will then change the color. It'll change that material. So let's right-click, create material, and we'll call this white. And it's already white, so that can stay. And we can you can either duplicate the material or just create a new one. The only time you'd really duplicate a material is if it had a whole bunch of settings that you wanted to maintain, like you changed the metallic and the smoothness and whatever else. So to copy a material, just so you know, it's Control D. In fact, it's not just copy material. You can copy any object, just about any object. You can, sorry, I said objects, asset. Just about any asset you can select and then click on Control D to copy. In this case, there really isn't a need, but I just wanted to throw that out there so you know. And we'll call this one green. We'll keep it simple for the moment. And we'll click up here, and we'll make this whatever, a green. So now it's just a matter of having this material get swapped out by this material. So right now, this just has a default material. So this is something I probably should have done in the first video, because if I applied the material to the very first tile, once I copied, the tile would have copied the material with it. So now I have to manually apply the material. Not a big deal. Again, I don't want to confuse issues, so I was really focusing on the layout. But yes, to save time, you can indeed apply a material first and then copy. But as you can see, not a big deal. We can easily do these in just a minute or two. So again, I'm just clicking on the tile, drag and dropping. And almost done. And there. So now what we need to do is we need to make the tiles aware of the green material. So the way we do that is right now there is not a script attached to the tile. I'm going to create a script and attach to the tile. Again, that's something that you could have done at the beginning, but I didn't want to go through the whole idea of scripting until we actually laid out the map. So we're going to make a script and then apply it to the individual tiles. So right click, create C# script. We'll call this TileCon for tile control. Sorry, I'm not quite sure why this sign popped open like that. I've noticed that Visual Studio does that. It didn't even open to the new script, so not quite sure why it does that. But now we can just double click and open that up. So outside of start, outside of update, but within the public class, we're going to do public material, and we'll call this green color. Oh, wow, my goodness, caps lock we're on, sorry. We'll save that. Now what we're going to do is we select our planes. I probably could have done this with the material now that I think of it. You can select multiple objects and then just drag the object onto it. So like if I click on these individually, you'll see they all have the TileCon script. So my apologies, I should have done that with the materials. Had a momentary lapse of common sense. Just want to make sure that all the tiles have it or else something weird will happen. Although it'll be obvious because if the tile doesn't change color, then you know the script isn't on it. Okay, so the tiles now all have a script, and the script makes reference to the material. So you can again select them and drag and drop that material right in there. And now it's just a matter of changing the color based on an impact. So we go back to our TileCon script and we do on collision enter as opposed to on trigger, which you've seen me use in some of the other videos if you've watched any of the other ones. So this is when it's not a trigger. This is when it's a solid object. So what we want to do, first I'm going to change this. I don't like the fact that it defaults to collision to refer to the other object that's being collided with. It makes it look more like a functional term, whereas this reminds you that it is the other object in case you have to reference it, which is very common with triggers. So for the moment, we're going to say if there's any kind of collision, then the tile will change, but we'll have to modify that once other things can collide, once other objects can collide, like we mentioned, the enemies that will be bouncing around. But again, this is an iterative process. So we're just going to get component, renderer, material will be set to green color. So again, same type of coding we saw earlier. You're referencing a component, which component the renderer, what attribute or what part of it, the material, and what is it being set to. Now what will probably happen is the tile at the top will change color because there's an impact. We can put some coding to adjust for that because like I said at the beginning, he basically drops onto the tile. So if nothing else, that tells you that it's working. He landed on it and it changed color. So we'll do that, and we will do that, and that, and that, and now what you need to do is that you need to track when a tile has been changed. I think I'll save that to the next video. I said I was going to do it in this one, but we have to create a variable. The variable will be equal to the amount of tiles. Every time a tile changes, that number would be reduced. However, right now, we are changing a tile, but it's not recognizing whether it was already that color or not. So we're going to have to put in a control that looks at the current color and sees if the color has actually changed. And there's a few ways we can do this. We can give each one of these, say, a tag, and that when the color changes, the tag changes, and then based on the tag, we then determine how many remain. So let's stop here, and we'll pick that up in the next video. Again, if there's a specific feature you want to see added, just let me know. Just leave a comment if you want to see a specific feature. But again, QBert is pretty standard, at least the original arcade game, it turns out. I saw there were some videos for actually updated version of QBert, so this is really looking at the original arcade. So in the next video, we'll handle that because that really introduces some new concepts. And again, I hope this video has been helpful.